Hey, everybody, this is Harvey Sluggo Wasserman back for the 51st. This is number 51 of our Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Coalition Zoom calls, or as we know it, GREEP. We are also broadcasting on the Progressive Radio Network at the Solartopia Green Power and Wellness Show. So for the first hour at least, and then the recordings are sent to other stations. So the first hour at least, we want to adhere to the 7 deadly words that we don't say, as per George Carlin. We then go to 40 minutes after 6 Eastern time, and then we do another 20 minutes with the recording off, and you can curse your head off at that point in time too. We have a tremendous gathering. These have all been tremendous gatherings. I want to thank Mike Hirsch and Steve Caruso, our erstwhile engineers, and my co-conspirator, co-convener, Joel Siegel, today's Jimi Hendrix lookalike. And we are just gonna really get deep into statehood, DC statehood today. And also we're gonna go again to Arizona to talk about the amazing recount there. We already have Ray LUTZ on the line, one of our great experts in the United States. Will be joined by John BRAKEY and Steve Rosenfeld as well to update us probably around 6, about 48 minutes from now, on what's happening in Arizona. And it is a ton. And boy, as they say, you couldn't make this stuff up. Just for a bit of a change of pace, we also want to talk, by the way, about a Voters' Bill of Rights. It occurs to me that all over the country, we've got some 500 bills that are designed to disenfranchise non-millionaires of youth and color. And we want to, and we're fighting them tooth and nail, but it occurred to me maybe we should have an alternative that we want to push and present, a Voters' Bill of Rights. And so I'm going to ask you, we'll get to that after we talk about DC statehood, but I'm going to ask people just to chime in with suggestions of what could go into a Voters' Bill of Rights. And then I'll ask you to just write out a paragraph or a line on what you think would be appropriate and send them to me by email at solartopia@gmail. And I will try to collate stuff and we'll have a deeper discussion about all that next week in call number 52. We have been going more than a year, by the way. We started April 27th of 2020. I think, as you may recall, there was an election happening. And it's a tribute to our democracy, that what's left of it, that we're still able to talk freely about these issues, although there are those who would prefer otherwise. So I do want to start with something we haven't discussed before, and we're going to be brief about it. There is an election involved, and the great Jan Goodman, one of our truly magnificent activists, who is named, by the way, after the great Eugene V. Debs, there is an election coming up to change, try to change the bylaws of the Pacifica Radio Network. The Pacifica Radio Network is one of the most important institutions, and I guess you could call it. Of course, if you've ever been in their meetings, it does seem sometimes like an institution. But Jan has been leading a movement to change the bylaws, and there is a very complicated election involved. And she is on the pro side. I will have someone on a later call who's against it, but the election itself is quite intriguing and requires monitoring, I believe, from people who specialize in elections, like the people on this call. So Jan, talking to us from Santa Monica, if you will give us a very brief overview of the bylaws that you want to, and why you want to change, but specifically the nature of the election, that would be wonderful. Are you unmuted?
Now I'm unmuted.
Yes. Okay.
And now that I'm unmuted, I need to sneeze, so I'm not sure if I'm gonna get through without.
Well, while you're sneezing, I'll tell you that the Pacifica Network involves KPFT in Houston, KPFA in Berkeley, KPFK in LA, WBAI in New York, and what's the station in DC? Did I miss KPF? What's the station in DC?
WPFW.
WPFW.
There you
So
go.
these
All
are
right.
all under the Pacifica Network, and there is a proposed bylaw change. There will be an election of the membership. If you're a member of KPF, well, I'm a KPFK, but if you're a member of Pacifica, Jan, if you'll put your email in the chat, people can get a hold of you. And as I say, there's an election coming up starting in June. So now that you've sneezed, if you can tell us what's happening, that would be great.
Okay, so I will put my information in the chat after I speak so that I'm not distracted while I'm speaking. So there is a referendum to change the bylaws of Pacifica, and the current bylaws were instituted almost 20 years ago, and the WPFW fans on the line probably are very aware of the time that they got changed to these bylaws. It was a kind of a fracas with including Marion Barry and many other important people. But we're now the effort to change the bylaws is really to save and allow Pacifica to flourish. And the situation is that it is in a crisis financial situation and a crisis listenership, listenership crisis. Also, there are our members are falling away like rats fleeing a drowning boat. But Pacifica is such an important institution, and even for those of you who don't live in the 5 station areas, which Harvey just mentioned, it's the first listener-sponsored radio station, and started about 75 years ago, much before anybody thought about listener sponsorship of radio. And it is independent because it is listener sponsored, so it is truly an important institution to support whether or not you live in the 5 station areas. We also have 250 affiliate stations who upload our programming and from whom we can upload programming. So throughout the country, Pacifica has a network, and the effort is to actually make that network stronger and be able to actually be the tool of the left as it could be and should be. So the election, from an election protection point of view, is very interesting because it's a virtually entirely internet run election where people will be voting, and they will have passcodes and keys. Each individual voter will have a key. There will be about 38,000 people voting. And we would be very interested, if there's anybody who would be interested in monitoring this election just from a monitoring point of view, election protection point of view, that would be really excellent. Please contact me through my chat. And it is this election is sort of a microcosm of big elections, of electing from school boards to presidents. And there are issues around fair and equal time and access to the airwaves and resources of this. Pacifica is a nonprofit 501c3 mutual benefit association. And
Great.
And one of the other interesting things about this election that's so similar to other ones is the get out the vote issue. And that is get out the vote will mean everything in this election. And if there are any people who might be interested or willing to help get out the vote, making phone calls and texts, that would be very critical. And of course, the biggest, most interesting aspect to me of the election is the amount of disinformation that
Okay.
is being thrown around. And I won't get into that, but if anybody's interested, please let me know.
So Jan is a magnificent activist, and it is a very, very contentious election, as everybody with any familiarity with Pacifica probably knows. And Jan, if you'll put your email on the bottom there, if anyone is interested in participating, if you're a member or donor of Pacifica, and if you're just interested in watching the election unfold and helping to make sure that it's a fair election, please join in. Okay, and I will have someone who is opposed to this referendum on later on. But the bottom line is we really want to make sure that this election runs right. It's a fascinating scenario. UNDC have a Pacifica flagship station there, as in LA, Berkeley, Houston, and New York. So, and then as Jen mentioned, there are 250 affiliates. It's the only network of its kind in the United States, and it's in dire straits. So please chime in if you can, and email Jan or me, and we'll proceed with that. Jan, thank you so much. Much appreciated.
Can I say something, Harvey?
Go ahead, Dorothy, real quick. Yes.
I cannot tell you how much I support what Jan is doing. I could not take it. And I'm not a quitter, but I could not sit through those board meetings. I brought a bunch of people with me, and I thought we could deal with it. Unbelievable. People on these boards who have no life. They can't run their own lives, and they're trying to run a multi-million-dollar corporation. It's untenable. These people have no lives except for KPFK, which is nice, but it doesn't make them ready to run a multi-million-dollar radio station. They got rid of
Okay.
Alan Minsky. These are people who wanted to get rid of Alan Minsky, who think that Ian Masters is a CIA agent.
Okay.
You know, there's important stuff going on at KPFK.
Very.
They just now have a show with Melina Abdullah on Monday morning, taking Lila's place, finally a worthy replacement for Lila Garrett. We need to
All
keep
right.
it going.
Okay, Dorothy, thank you for that. Much appreciated. Again, write to Jan if you're interested in the Pacifica Network and this amazing election. It's a classic study in election protection, and anybody who wants to help out with it, we are more than happy to have you involved. Okay, thank you, Jan. Thank you, Dorothy. Moving on, we're going to go now into the pièce de résistance here, the DC statehood movement. We have the great Andrea Miller with us, and Charles Moreland, Dr. Jones, really the core senator, the Senator Brown is with us, I believe. I want to turn this over to Joel, who introduced Charles Moreland, and we're going to do, because there is a ton, including a huge upcoming march, which will be as huge as Bernie Sanders can make it. And go ahead, Joel Siegel, please, and introduce Charles, and we'll talk more about the latest developments, which are very, very significant. And we have 85 people with us on the call. Go ahead, Joel. Oh, you got to unmute, brother. Joel, unmute.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Okay, I've unmuted now. I'm fully muted.
No, you're good.
So anyway, I want to also invite Anise Jenkins, one of the longtime fighter for DC statehood, very close to Representative John Conyers too, and then Eugene Kenlow. But there'll be each person is going to give an update on the status of DC statehood, and what can we do in the grassroots, to help. Charles, of course, has been incredibly important in this movement, but he's got so many other colleagues. I just want to make sure that I want everybody to understand the breadth and scope of this movement is huge. And the speakers are going to be able to touch on what they're working on, and then what we can do to see if we can get legislation passed, especially in the Senate. So I'm going to call on Charles Moreland first. Charles, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And I want to thank the Progressive Democrats of America This month and what we're doing now marks the beginning of the last chapter in our 220-year struggle for freedom and justice. The natural course of injustice is that a people who are oppressed will remain oppressed until they stand up against the oppressor. And so that means that we in the District of Columbia understand that there's work that we have to do. And so we're going to talk about what our plans are. And we want to solicit your help in helping us stand up. But first, let's start with an update and a status report. Let's start with Senator Brown and then Eugene Kindler. Senator?
Thanks, Charles. Not much has changed from the last time we've met, but the status of the bill right now is that we have a bill that's passed, a statehood bill that's passed in the House of Representatives along partisan lines. I think most people know this. I think the vote was 216 to 208. It's now in the United States Senate, and we have every Democrat on the bill -3. The two senators from Arizona are not co-sponsors of the bill yet. Our friend from West Virginia, Senator Manchin, and also independent senator from Maine, Angus King. But other than that, all the Democrats are on the bill. There's talk about having a hearing on the bill before Homeland Security and Government Affairs sometime in the early summer. So we're looking forward to that. Other than that, there's not much to report about the status. Now, the White House came out earlier, later last week with a modification of the bill around the 23rd Amendment. Not an advisable move from my perspective, but they have they're trying to maneuver around the objections to the 23rd Amendment, which would, if it's not repealed, give the president and the first family 3 electoral votes. This has been a stumbling block used by the Republicans, just another in a long list of red herrings that have been put up to block our progress. So the White House has suggested that the 3 votes remain with the first family and actually be given to whoever wins the election, whoever has the most votes. So again, I think it's
we do have major news on the big march, Senator Brown.
Yes, we do. We do have major news. We put in an application to get the part of the mall area for the 28th, 29th of August, which would be the 58th anniversary of the March on Washington, August 28th. And the Park Service contacted me today, and we will have a meeting about that next week. So we're on our way to make it happen.
Dr. Brown or Charles Moreland, did you want to talk about that, or Dr. Brown? Thank you, Senator. Much appreciated.
Yeah, we're going to have Dr. Brown give us an update really on where we are with the march, and then I'll fill in. Why don't we hear from Eugene Kindler next?
Okay.
Eugene, let us know what's happening with 51 for 51 and any other information you have on some more recent developments.
All right, well, glad to be here. I want to thank the conveners, Slogo, Joel, Mike, and Steve. We're going to have to even that out and make sure we get some women participating in that as well.
Well, we got Andrea Miller, who's going to be talking with us.
And we got a new thinking that's going to follow you.
Good to go. Good to go. All right, so I'm not going to duplicate many of the things that have been said before. We're moving forward. Senator Brown highlighted who the targets are. It's up to us to go get them. But First of all, I think it's very symbolic that this is your 51st show. And I thank you for spending time and talking about the 51st
Oh, that's
state,
right. I
Washington,
found that. Good
D.C.
connection. 51 for 51.
51 for 51.
That's right. So let's go get it. Now, so you've heard about this guy. What's his name? Joe Manchin. I think he's on everybody's list of people who want to talk to him and urge him to think the right way, whether it's about minimum wage, whether it's about DC statehood, or a number of other issues. For us, I'm asking and urging the group to let's get just grassroots. I'm not so sure that there are people in the state who are reaching out the way we'd like to reach out, which means they are his constituents and they should be calling him. They should be phone banking. And I'd love to see a little bit more support in the media. You've heard a couple of weeks ago when you heard the senator a partial opinion on DC statehood. That came out because of the senator being on an AM radio station. So I think that we got to utilize the media a little bit more and see if we can get a few letters to the editors and a few more things that correct his thinking. He has said that it is not constitutional, or he's got questions about the constitutionality of the bill. And I think that we just need to continue to reinforce in the things that he reads, the large newspapers, on the radio stations, people who call in and say, who are from West Virginia, who say it is constitutional. So we are looking for a few folk. We've got information. You can go to statehood.dc.gov. That's statehood.dc.gov, and there's plenty of information there. Or you can reach out to Senator Brown, Mr. Moreland, Anise Jenkins at Stand Up for Democracy. There's plenty of talking points, but we just need to make sure we've got some folk that we are talking to and that they can talk to their elected officials. Me calling from Washington, D.C., a guy with the suit on, even though I'm born and bred here in Washington, D.C., and when I was born, we couldn't even vote for president here in Washington, D.C. Things have changed, but not enough. So we need people from where they are, people who are going to speak truth to power in the state of West Virginia. There's a few more, as Senator Brown mentioned. Arizona is a place that we'd like to talk about as well. But I believe that if we can convince and convict Mr. Manchin with the right thing to do, that others will follow. And we can bring all those three Democrats on board.
Well, I think we should remind Senator Manchin of the unique way that West Virginia became a state. You know, no other state of the union was entered the way West Virginia was. So I think he should be reminded of that. Charles, do you want to proceed? Thank you, Eugene. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much, Eugene. I'm so glad to hear both of you talking about trying some new things. You know, the definition of insanity is to continue to do the same thing and expect a different result. And so for 220 years, the citizens of DC have begged and pleaded in as patient and humble a fashion as any slaves have ever begged for their freedom. This campaign of writing letters, yeah, you're right, Eugene, we need to get the media on track, because quite frankly, the media has not treated us fairly. This is the most outrageous system of government on the planet. And we need the media to call out those individuals who are supporting this system. We're gonna go real quick to Anise Jenkins. Anise, tell us about some of the things that you're doing. And you might want to mention where you were yesterday with Senator Brown. Anise, you're on mute.
Anise Jenkins?
We were privileged to be on the front lawn of our statehood senator. Senator Brown has a huge sign that has gotten a lot of attention that lets people know that they are entering Washington, D.C., and they are losing their citizenship rights. And this has received a lot of coverage, a lot of media attention, and a lot of people need to know that you are not a citizen of the United States if you're a DC resident. One thing that was very important was that WPFW is a radio station that is strongly for DC statehood. It has voiced an opinion and supported all of our calls for statehood in the world. It has given us national exposure, and it was founded by A.C. Byrd, who was founder of our organization, Stand Up for Democracy in DC, which is a statehood. He encouraged us to be a statehood organization. We need to get the media out. As we said, we need to get the constituents out and make Manchin and Sinema and the other statehood senators afraid to oppose DC statehood. Make them afraid to oppose it. We need to get that media support. We need to get the exposure, and we need WPFW is one of the organizations that supports us solidly.
Good. Okay. Do you want to, Charles, do you want to call on Laura Chamberlain? She's one of our stalwarts here and has a hand.
Sure.
Laura, go ahead. Laura.
Hey,
Laura
hi. I want him to go into the 23rd Amendment some more. And the president has electors they can appoint. Like, just go into that just a little bit, because I think it's one of the big hurdles. Is it not? Thanks.
Yes, Senator, you want to take that, and then we're going to say.
Thanks, Charles. It actually is a red herring. The legislation calls for the removal of the 23rd Amendment upon DC becoming a state. So they want to make an issue out of it. Unfortunately, we seem to be going down that rabbit hole with them saying, oh no, we can fix this, but we don't need to fix it. Jamie Raskin, who you may know, Democrat from Maryland, called it, a made up, said the 23rd Amendment was a made up argument. It really doesn't exist. It's not something that we should worry about. But yeah, technically, I mean, if DC were to become a state and they weren't to revoke the 23rd Amendment, which gives DC 3 electoral votes, or actually gives DC the same amount of votes as the least populous state, then, potentially, if they weren't to get rid of the 23rd Amendment, there would be 3 votes left in the capital service area, which would include the White House. But nobody thinks that in reality, the president of the United States is going to get his own personal 3 votes. So it's really a non-issue.
Trump seems to think that was his right, but I don't know about Biden.
Yeah, no, I don't think they're going to allow that to happen. And can I say one more thing, since I'm on the sign that Anish Jenkins talked about is getting a lot of media attention. It's had more than 25,000 views on social media. So we're asking people to go to my Twitter account and retweet it. My Twitter account is Senator SEN MD Brown. And if you can go there and retweet the sign, we're trying to get 100,000 tweets. So that would be very helpful. But I wouldn't worry about the 23rd Amendment.
Okay, Charles, do you want to talk
let's go real quick to Dr. Don Jones. Dr. Jones, can you tell everybody about where we are with the demonstration? I want to let everybody know that August 28th, we plan to commemorate the anniversary of the March on Washington with a march for DC statehood. It's the Dream March for DC statehood, green jobs, and justice. So we're going to need your help. In fact, we cannot do it. We won't be able to do it without the Progressive Democrats of America. But Dr. Jones, would you give us some specifics as to where we are and what we're going to do on that day?
Thank you, Charles. What we're planning to do on that date is we're going to, if we can segue with the National Action Network, then we will be able to do it on the 28th and the 29th. If we can't segue with them, we will march from the Washington Monument to the Capitol. We've got an application in, as Senator Brown discussed, and we should be meeting with the Parks District next week and an analyst who will help us work out all of the details. We're also planning to coordinate among the 50 states and have like marches as well. And all of that is being planned, and we will keep you informed as developments progress.
Yeah.
And you've actually filed for the permits, is that right?
Yes, I have. That's why they reached out to Senator Brown today. Senator Brown signed it over the weekend, and I personally delivered it this morning. And I was surprised that they moved so quickly in reaching out, because we put Senator Brown as the contact.
Yeah, so we're going to have this march, and I do believe that it is even organizing it and the things that we're going to do, I think is going to send a signal. Of course, there is a slight remote possibility that the Senate might pass the bill. And I've heard some people say, what are you going to do? That will be a great day of celebration. That'll be a day that we will all come together. But at any rate, we want to show how all of the progressive movements for green jobs and for justice intersect, and how important DC statehood is to the movements, and so we're gonna talk about that. We are going to address some of the diversions and distractions, some of the questions about that are being presented by the opposition just to distract us. Let me see.
I think if DC's not a state by then, maybe we should throw some tea bags in the reflecting pool. What do you think?
Yeah, you remind me of the days when Jesse Jackson and we used to have a tea party. We would barge into the IRS. This was in the 90s. We would barge into the IRS and actually dump tea on the floor of the IRS. But some of the IRS agents who were DC residents, the reason why they didn't arrest us, they said, Charles, Mr. Moreland, you're right. But let's hear from Theodora Brown real quick, because her and Andrea have been working to set up some democracy centers. In fact, I want to tell Joel and Harvey, one of the best things you have ever done for the DC statehood movement so far is to introduce us to Andrea Miller. Theodora, can you bring—
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks so much for giving us this platform here. And so I really want to defer to Andrea Mitchell on this, because it's her organization that is supporting these democracy centers around the country. And we've identified the statehood movement in the Douglas Commonwealth Coalition to actually stand up a democracy center here in DC. And so we had a wonderful meeting last Friday, working through the sort of the nuts and bolts of what that requires on a part of our organization. But Andrea can much better explanation of what the democracy centers do for folk of color and low wealth people around the country. So Andrea, I'm gonna boot it to you.
Yeah. I'm going to jump in. I want to mention, before you get going, I want to mention John BRAKEY and Ray LUTZ are both on the call, and we will get to them up front with the report from Arizona later on in the call, probably a little after 6. And there are 93 people with us right now. So, and lovely sunset. I'm glad you're getting outside and getting some air, Theodora, with the sunset over the Golden Gate Bridge there. But Andrea, come on now. Truly great, Andrea Miller. Let us know about these democracy centers, please.
Hey, everybody. Hey, Harvey, Joel, Charles, Theodora, Anise, Senator Brown. Hey, one of the things that you talked about was that we don't have the Arizona senators on board. one of the things that democracy centers do is not only do we do GOTV and we work with really helping local groups really address pain points, but we are a tech house. We have the Arizona voter file. So we have the ability to let folks in DC call voters in Arizona, and then we will patch them through to Senator Mark Kelly. I think we want to start with Senator Kelly because Senator Sinema has been getting a ton of calls on the For the People Act. Since Senator Kelly is on that, I don't think anybody's bothering him. So we need to make sure that Senator Mark Kelly feels the love / pressure to do the right thing for DC. So we would generally be calling the voters of color in Arizona, a lot of the same voters that we turned out. We would tell them very quickly about the plight of their brothers and sisters in DC and see if they'd be willing to talk to the senator. They don't need to make a separate call. We literally are going to just patch them through. We will connect them. So that's one of the things that we can do.
And tell us, Andrea, about the proposal for the Victory, the Voter Center and the Victory Center in DC, and how that's going to segue in with the big march.
Well, one of the things that you always need if you're going to be doing any kind of a big march is it is very, very useful, number one, to physically have a place where you can gather all your stuff. It is also very, very important to be able to have voting information for people, along with a whole collection of this is what we need you to do. So we are all about activating people, giving them something that they can do. We could look at running a texting program to voters in Arizona, asking them to call Senator Kelly. Almost everybody can text. I mean, I know people may not want to make phone calls, that can be scary, but everybody can sit there on their computer and press send and text. So there will be this possibility for camaraderie, for power building. There are areas in DC that are food insecure. If in the Democracy Center, it makes sense to do a food drive, a food pantry, whatever it is. Our democracy centers do all types of things to support the people in their community. And when you raise up the people in your community, think that Black Panthers, go back further, Jesse Jackson, Operation Breadbasket, then it is amazing. The community goes, well, you know, wait a minute. What can we do to help you? Whereas in reality, what they're doing is they're really helping themselves. So it's all about empowerment, people feeling and realizing just how.
Let's add that not only is the Douglas Commonwealth Coalition going to be standing up the Democracy Center in DC, but we're the primary organization behind the march as well. So we're your partners with Greenpeace and all the other organizations that are involved in the Dream March for DC statehood, green jobs and justice in August.
Let me take this time to invite everybody who's willing to help us organize this demonstration.
You're fading, Charles.
Let me invite everybody who's willing to help us to attend a working session, organizing meeting tonight at 8 o'clock. It's a recurring meeting every night, every Monday at 8 o'clock. Dr. Jones, can you post to everybody the Zoom invitation? Is that possible? Also,
Post it in the chat, Charles.
yes, okay. And everybody who can attend, believe me, that's work for you. And we're going to answer some questions already that you might have. As well, Dr. Jones, can you post the website for the Douglas Coalition, Douglas Commonwealth Coalition?
You got it.
We ask everybody to look at the site. Andrea, let me tell you, look at the site. You made some.
I love your website. Your website is great. I want to see more pictures of the beautiful people in DC with their signs.
All of your suggestions. Did you see the new suggestions?
Oh,
the new
I was going to give you a whole day. All right. I am going to look right now.
We did it.
All right.
What is the website again?
It's
Charles?
www.Douglas with 2 S's coalition.us.
Yes,
Beautiful.
I'm on your site right now.
Yeah. So Andrea, listen, let's work it.
Yes, I just put the link in the. Oh yeah, there we go.
Yes,
there we go. Yeah.
We'll have somebody put some artistic touch to it, but
yeah. This has been a struggle. People struggle. You fight back. Show people we've been fighting, and now we are going to win this fight.
Exactly. Thomas Jefferson said that resistance to tyranny is obedience to God. And so tonight and moving forward, the Douglas Coalition is going to work with people in Washington and all over the country to figure out how can we resist this tyranny? What can we do? How can we do something? Can we stay sit-ins? We're looking at boycotts. We're looking at a whole number of ways, and we're open to suggestion for ways that we can stand up and resist this outrageous system of government that the Congress is imposing on 712,000 US citizens.
I want to mention also that this storefront we're going to do in DC with Andrea and Charles and everybody, this Democracy Center, Howie Hawkins in Syracuse does have a storefront, which is essentially a Democracy Center. It's the Green Party office there on street level and open to the public, right, Howie? And you have people coming in there. It's sort of a role model for what we're looking to do, right?
Yep. The big issues are police brutality and bail disparity between blacks and whites. That's what people come in for. That's the issue right now.
And I understand people come in there and they think you're Governor Cuomo. And so, you know, it's.
They think I'm the district counselor. I only got 48%. I didn't win.
All right, we'll keep at it. There will be a green component to this march. I'm going to put it down on paper. Charles has asked me to do that. We're going to talk especially about solarizing all the federal buildings in DC, starting with the White House. And if I can arrange it, we will have a solar panel at this march to present physically at the White House and tell them to put it up. You can go to Google Maps or whatever and look at the roof of the White House and see it. It's very well suited for solar panels. It would be a great statement worldwide to have that building covered with solar panels. And we know that Jimmy Carter had one. That was for water, solar water heating. We're trying to track that one down, by the way. But it would be quite obsolete right now. But Ronald Reagan tore it off, and it's time to put it back on. And that's just among the other things we're going to talk about in terms of green jobs. Steve Caruso has a hand, then Charles, I'll give it back to you. Steve?
Yeah, Laura had a question about donations to the committee, the Douglas.
Yeah,
Charles?
In fact, we have Act Blue. Dr. Jones, can you post that? And we'll have.
The donate link on your website's not working. I was gonna donate.
Listen, that will be up and working tomorrow, but we're going to post it online right now. Dr. Jones, can you do that? Or Senator, can you do it? We have it and we're ready.
All right.
As soon as I get the link, Charles, I can post it.
Dr. Jones, can you do it?
As soon as I get the link, I'll post it.
Okay.
All right.
And everybody is certainly we really, really appreciate any contribution that you can give because we're going to do this and it's going to take hard work. We are ready to do it. And we want to look for your suggestions. As I said, how do we stand up? We looked at a boycott. Should we boycott West Virginia? We've explored all of this. And then we have bills and we have on the site, you can go and sign up and join. You can be a volunteer. We have various committees for this committee, for this event, everything from volunteer committee, public relations committee, fundraising committee. We want you to join a committee and join this effort. We need you.
So that meeting tonight at 8 o'clock, and Dr. Don Jones went in and with the senator and applied for the permit. So this March, August 28th and or 29th at the Lincoln and or the National Capitol with the delivery of a solar panel to DC and so much to the White House, that is all happening. And Charles Moreland, it's amazing crew you put together. Is there anyone else you want to call on, Charles?
Well, one other thing, I've had a suggestion that we do a self-determination awards banquet on Friday. So this thing is really taking off, and it's got legs of its own. So this is a movement whose time has come. We've seen it happen before. I never thought that the Confederate flag would come down from Mississippi. Me being from Georgia, I was ready. But we've seen the Confederate flag come down when the time comes, and our movement is a time. The time has come for us to become first-class American citizens, to enjoy all the rights that citizens everywhere else in America inherit as a birthright. So
absolutely, and we also want Andrea to be setting up this Democracy Center in DC as a prototype to go all over the country. Is that right, Andrea?
Most definitely. We've got 3 coming up in Virginia, and we've got 1 in South Carolina, 1 in Georgia, and 4 more are going in Georgia, and 5 are going into North Carolina.
Harvey, can you talk and tell us how green jobs and justice intersect with the statehood movement?
Okay, so one of the major issues, of course, is voting rights. Hopefully towards the end of the call today, we'll start to talk about various pieces of a voting rights Bill of Rights. And that's the justice part. We also want to abolish homelessness and poverty, of course, especially the hunger piece of it. In terms of the green power, we want to convert the United States to 100% green energy with wind, solar, batteries, and LED lighting. We know it's possible. We know the technology is there. And in this particular, and that's where the jobs are. There's a very, very high ratio of dollars invested to jobs created in renewable energy. And in particular, of course, the state of West Virginia, which is going through its transition out of coal, needs to get into wind power with tons of mountains in West Virginia with plenty of wind. But we know that the country can be powered by renewable energy. And we know that that's where the jobs are. That's where the future is. We need to shut all the nuclear plants. There are 93 currently operating in the US. We need to shut all the coal burners, all the oil and gas burners. We see that the car companies now are converting finally to electric. And, and we think that the Biden administration has a pretty good understanding of a lot of this. For some reason, they're supporting nukes, but we don't want to do this, but we want those reactors shut. We are approaching Greenpeace, the Green Party, and we want a green-powered Earth and certainly a green-powered economy with far more jobs than we've got now. So that's the piece of it, and DC is really a great target for a campaign on renewables.
Let me add something to that, how it all intersects. Most importantly, two DC senators are going to be supportive of green jobs and justice in every way. In fact, they're saying now, Harvey, because of our association with you, is that DC suffers from the 4 twos: too urban, too liberal, too democratic, and too progressive. But we're all in.
Well, someday we hope they'll say it's too green, but we want to make it green.
Yeah, let's say too green too.
Right. You know, we will not. I will say we will not be sticking a windmill on top of the Washington Monument, but there will be solar. There will be solar panels on top of the White House.
All over the surface.
All right.
Tataka.
Yeah, I just have a quick question and suggestion for Charles and the team. I think of the boycott is a very, very powerful nonviolent tool, and experience with the farm workers is you have a range of targets. Choose your first one as the most vulnerable that we can have a quick success, publicize that, and then go on to others. I don't know who that would be.
I want to draft you to be on our committee because we're having some back and forth as to how. But let me tell you one thing that we're looking at. We have a bill that's already been drafted. It's called the No Taxation Without Representation Procurement Bill. And we're going to, first of all, start with the DC Council and ask jurisdictions, state, municipal, and local jurisdictions all over the country to pass a bill that says they will not purchase any goods or services from any entity or individual that supports taxation without representation. And we emphasize, of course, taxation without representation as a starting point, because once we get people to buy into that, then we want to make them realize that the only way to eliminate taxation without representation in the District of Columbia is statehood. There's no other way. All these other alternative, pair with Puerto Rico, retrocession back into Maryland, none of these will work. But I don't know a person in America, I would hope, and certainly not an elected official, that will support taxation without representation. Yet they do by virtue of the fact that they are not giving us statehood, which is the only way that we can become full first-class American citizens and do away with taxation without representation. So,
all right,
Laura,
I accept that.
Good.
Sure,
okay.
I will join it and have a conversation.
And
Okay.
we'll let you know when we have a special meeting just on that, the boycott.
Okay.
Okay, well, a reminder, sorry, Charles. A reminder tonight, your meeting is at 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
The Zoom link is in the chat. It's a great group of people, and you will be making history. The 58th anniversary of the I Have a Dream speech. This will be the Dream March for DC statehood, green jobs, and justice. I gotta put in here that one of the things about renewables is a much more democratic, small d, form of energy because it can be controlled by the communities, and it works in harmony with our mother nature. So those are the things we want to emphasize about the green jobs part of this. Laura Chamberlain had a quick question. John BRAKEY and Ray LUTZ are on the line. We're going to shift out to Arizona quickly. And then at the end of that discussion, we'll talk about the voter bill of rights. Laura, did you want to ask a question, please?
Yeah, Charles, are you prepared for the influx of African Americans that are going to be moving to DC if you get this done? I just want to throw it out there. Thanks.
Let me say this. I like to say now, DC used to be Chocolate City, and they used to say among the 4 twos, we were 2 black. But that is not the case anymore. DC is almost evenly divided, black and white, and then there's some Hispanics and the like in the middle. Plus, there's some local issues that would prevent that, and they call it gentrification. Prices of homes and apartments in DC are so high, but I feel you. But, if you look at the history of DC from time to time has been vast majority white. At one time after 1968, after white flight, the population I think rose to about 86%, but now it has shrunk. So who knows? But we would welcome anybody that comes back into DC.
Well, I'm a native, and I never left.
I never left. I've been here.
And DC was the first place to emancipate the enslaved.
Yes.
Yeah, in DC, it was the only place in the Union where the federal government compensated the slave owners for the emancipated slaves. And so that's one of the things that started drawing a whole lot of African Americans and former slaves into DC.
And I do want to point out that we have already won a major victory in DC by getting that football team to change its name finally after all these years. So they may just keep calling it the Washington DC football team. I don't know. Maybe they should call it the Frederick Douglass. How about the Abolitionists? That would be a great name for that football team.
Yeah,
all right. Hey, so Charles, are we done? Can we? Are you got more again?
Yeah. Is there anybody that's on the line? Franklin, are you on the line? Franklin Garcia? There are a couple other people we invited. Anybody else from DC that wants to say something?
All right,
Anise, you're never without words, Anise. Come on.
Do join the call tonight.
We welcome your help, and we need your help. We need international help. We need help throughout the nation. Let's get Arizona and West Virginia.
All right, you got it. All right, amen to that too. All right, so
thank you. We love you.
Go ahead, Charles. Okay, everybody join the call tonight, 8 p.m. Charles, we're going to keep going with you. Andrea Miller, it's always great to have you on. Everybody, thank you so much. Jed Palker has the last question, then we go to Ray Lutz and John BRAKEY out in Arizona, and then we'll go to talk about the voter bill of rights. Jed, did you want to jump in with something?
Yeah, thanks. Just real quick, it's not a question, just say as a DC boy myself, left in 1972, I will, if I can't join the call tonight, which looks unlikely, I will follow a recording or follow up, because I'd like to be on that committee and help out.
Unbelievable stuff, really fantastic. We're going to sign off from the recording, and then we're going to proceed unrecorded. I want to welcome James Fukuda. You've been on the call for a while. We still have 72 people here. After 90 minutes, who says that Americans don't have an attention span? This has been the 51st, 51 for 51 Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Coalition Zoom call, engineered by Mike Hirsch and Steve Caruso, co-convened by with Joel Siegel. I'm Harvey Sluggo Wasserman. This has been just an amazing session. Again, next week, we're going to talk in greater detail about a voter bill of rights. We're going to revisit Ray McClendon in Atlanta. We'll talk a little bit more about the Pacifica election, and God knows what's going to happen between now and then. I will try again to get somebody from New Hampshire to talk about the recount that's been going on there, and that may be done by next week. But again, tonight at 8 p.m. With Charles Moreland, there will be an organizing call. The Zoom connection is in the chat, 8 p.m. Eastern time for the big march, August 28th-9th at the Lincoln and the National Capitol in Washington, D.C. for DC statehood, green jobs, and justice. Thank you, everybody. All 71 of you still with us. It has been an amazing call, as always, and the recording is going to go off. We will see you next week, same time, 5 p.m. Eastern time, 2 p.m. Pacific. I hope that fire in Pacific Palisades is out and that everybody is safe and sound.